Okay, so my production, I decided to do a short film because I feel like I've done 2 short films in the past, and I think that these are quite successful. So I actually took my first idea and decided to develop the characters from that, because I thought in a film, a lot of the film at the beginning is based on character development. So I thought if I already had the 2 characters from my first film, I didn't have to focus so much on character development, and I could just go straight into the idea and the storyline, which was really important for this production, in my opinion. So my idea was based on these 2 characters from my first film, so Noah and Elaine. And they didn't actually have names until this piece because my last film was a silent film, but I really wanted to change kind of the theme really of this film and make it more like a spoken and quite emotional. So my aim was definitely to make an emotional piece that followed on from the first film, to make it just link up quite well, and I think it would also like encourage people who watched the first film to watch this one as well, to get a better understanding of the characters and the story. So I generated my idea by looking at like old photos that my grandma was showing me from the 50s, and I kind of got quite a lot of inspiration because obviously this time period it's just quite like, I feel like our generation don't really know much about the 50s and about what it was like and the different things that went on. So I thought really targeting this film at people from like the age of 13 to 20 was quite good, because it would enable them to learn more about the 50s and really what kind of family life was like, I guess. So yeah, I kind of drew on like the 50s quite a lot really, because I really wanted to challenge myself with this production. So getting the costumes was obviously a really big challenge, because they don't like wear modern clothes, they wear quite old-fashioned clothes, really quite like flowery dresses for the women was quite like common, and for the men they would always dress quite smart. So I obviously had to incorporate all of these ideas into this production, which was quite a challenge. Yeah, the film festival I decided to enter was the Encounters Film Festival. I decided to enter the Best Short Film category because I thought that this was the most suitable category for this film festival really, because I didn't expect to get very far in it, but I thought I might as well try and just see how it goes. Just entering it would be quite an achievement really for me, so I thought that was quite cool. So the synopsis of my film was that Elaine, and young Elaine, I really wanted to show her life when she was like a young teenager, and about like how that linked in with friendship. One of the key themes was definitely friendship in my production. I really wanted to show how friendship can like last over a lifetime. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be friends with somebody like the whole time. It can always develop over time, and like you still keep in contact with all the people you meet just in life. It's just quite a cool topic really to focus on, and I think like young people as well needed to realise that like friendship does last, even if you're not like friends. Like if you're friends now with somebody, you can still meet in the future and it will still be a friendship. It doesn't always go, it gets passed on, and that was quite a key theme as well. The elephants from my last film, I think they really symbolise the idea of friendship, and that's really what I tried to do. So my target audience was definitely at 13 to 21, because I wanted to show in a young audience that elderly people like have stories to tell about their past and that they are quite interesting. So the character of Noah really represented like that young person who was quite naive on the topic, and I thought the audience would be able to relate to him. Yeah, the target audience also said that my film should be around 10 minutes, so I tried to keep to this like time frame because I thought it was quite a good like time frame to do that. So I'll talk about my platform in a minute, but I will show a bit of my film first.
Paycheck, scolded on, haircut, glasses on, coffee, photograph, a bird.
can meet them unexpectedly, but they can still change our lives for the better. I met Elaine through the Scouts because I helped her out for one of my badges. We became friends and she would tell me stories about her life when she was young. Sometimes I would help her feed the birds. I mostly listened to her stories. They were so interesting and I wanted to know more.
Back when I was a teenager, I lived here with my parents, and it was a quiet life here. I loved the garden and our little house. It was home to me. On my 16th birthday, my parents gave me a plot of my own up the allotment. I was so happy I could grow my own vegetables and I could be free.
Mother, I'm off to the allotment now. I'll be back in time for tea. I promise.
Elaine, you're off there again?
Yes, Mother. It's my favourite place to go.
Elaine, don't be late for dinner! Elaine?
Okay, so I just want to explain like that bit. So I really wanted to portray like family life in that scene. So I really wanted to quite like establish the scene really and how Elaine's life has stayed quite the same. So she's lived in the same place for her whole life and like nothing's really changed. So it shows how temporary her life was and how like controlled and what a controlled environment she lived in. So I really wanted to put that across. And in this scene, this is where Elaine meets a friend, Betty. And this is where they kind of develop their friendship really over this time. And obviously the parents in this scene don't really disagree, they really disagree with her friendship. So I will show just a quick bit where, yeah. So Elaine has to go to her room because her mother's upset with her meeting this friend. So yeah, with that scene also, like what I did was I recorded some music from a live performance by a choir called Capital Connection. I thought that this song was really quite like key to this film because it's a 50s song called Cry Me a River, and I just thought it really represented the theme well and it's quite emotional. So, and that was one of my aims obviously to create an emotive piece. So I thought that music fit quite well. And I know it's really difficult to like show you like the whole thing because it's quite it's quite difficult, but another challenge really was because I had to film over quite a lot of locations. So I filmed most of this in Hazelmere, so near Wickham, but then a lot of it was filmed in Somerset as well. So cutting between those two locations was quite challenging because I had to obviously edit in a way that made it seem seamless to the audience. So that's the challenge that I faced. And kind of in this scene, I don't really know where, but yeah, we went on this steam train, and like I thought that was quite cool because it just showed how stuff can like move and like friendship can change, and I just thought like using a train was quite like symbolic of that theme. And at the end, obviously, the friends come back into contact, and I just thought this was quite interesting to portray that friendship does last.
Can you get up and let Elaine sit down there?
Of course I can. Oh, that's nice to see you.
However did you find me?
My young friend Noah has taught me that it's good to have hope.
Are you still growing gooseberries on your
Yes, and blackcurrant. Yes.
Elaine, you gave this box to me.
Oh yes. Thank you. This is my young friend Noah. He's been helping me. He's in the Scouts. And I'd like you to do something for me.
The elephants. Excuse me, Noah. Elaine asked me to give you this.
Life is but a moment here before it's gone dead.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole thing. Like, yeah, but obviously it's quite difficult to follow it. But yeah, With the credits at the end, I really wanted to be creative for that, so I used like images and pictures to kind of keep the audience engaged. Because I read a thing like on the internet, I think, that said at the end of the film, the audience always get up and leave because it's like the end of the film, but keeping them engaged that bit longer really kind of like makes them think about the film and what they've just watched. So I thought that was quite a cool fact. My platform that I chose to use this on, I use 3 different platforms really to advertise my film. So I use Snapchat like throughout the whole filming process to document what I've been doing and like behind the scenes. I just thought that was quite cool to get people engaged in it really, and just to see what they thought of the production and so they could see behind the scenes. And then on Facebook I got my survey responses from there because I thought getting a larger response like on social media, obviously everybody uses social media, so it was better to get like more people to respond to my surveys. And on my surveys actually people said that Facebook and YouTube were the 2 sites that were the most like successful, and I think that they work quite well. Obviously YouTube has like a big audience like platform, so I think that showing it on that was just a good place to show it. And I've also showed all my other short films in there, and that's been successful, so I thought that would be good to do that. And then the last thing is the challenges that I faced really. There were quite a lot of challenges really because I don't know, an actor at the last minute dropped out, so I had like a challenge trying to find a new person to do that. So the girl who plays young Elaine, I found her in like a week, so that was quite difficult because obviously I'd scripted it for the other actor, and she'd said that she'd audition, and it was quite stressful to get that actor, but obviously it got sorted and I was happy with the outcome, and her acting was very good, so that didn't really set me back really that much, but I was glad that I managed to overcome that. And I compared my films to like other short films that were set in the 50s, so with the colour correction I thought that was quite important to look at. And films like Back to the Future, just how they portray the 50s was quite important. This is the last thing, the challenges. Yeah, my main actor dropped out, which I've discussed. The film shot across many locations, I talked about that as well. And I had to reshoot some scenes. So in one of the scenes, my grandma is wearing a red jumper, and I realised that on the picnic scene, she was wearing a red jumper, but then when she walked home she was wearing a green jumper, so this was a continuity error. So I did have to go back and reshoot this. I did try and colour correct her jumper in post, but it didn't look very effective, so I did try and get around this in multiple ways, but obviously reshooting was the only way that worked. I had to ensure that modern day aspects weren't in the background, so like lampposts and like cars and different things, so that was quite a challenge. I did have to find locations that worked with my piece. That was like really challenging, but it did work. I think like choosing rural locations did like help me, whereas like if I did it in a town it'd be quite difficult to avoid cars and background noise. I did have to organise quite a large cast. I had 18 people overall to organise, so I had like, I think it was like 10 extras for the funeral scene to sit in the audience, and obviously the 4 main actors, which were the friends, so Elaine and Betty. Yeah, so I had a large cast to organise, but I was happy with how I managed to organise this, and yeah, I thought that I did that quite well. Yeah, that's it.
I have just one question. Could you, for anyone who's not watched both films, could you just explain the elephants real quickly?
Okay, so basically in the last film, the elephants, at the end one of them disappears, so there's a larger elephant and then a small elephant, and that kind of represents like the authority figure in the relationship. So like obviously the older person was telling the story, and the younger child was like listening and just trying to engage in it. And at the end of the last film, like the older elephant disappears, so that represents like sort of that authority figure's gone, and the young one's left alone to kind of fend for itself. And that's just kind of a stylistic thing that I chose at the end of the last film. But in this film, I decided to kind of use that as a friendship thing. So when Betty was a young child, she gives Elaine these elephants as a token of friendship. And these elephants kind of get passed on, so that represents that friendship does live on. Like, so I thought that was quite a cool idea to do. Yeah.
Cool. Lovely. Right. Do we have a volunteer, or are we going back to the random?